Good morning, everyone. I'd hope to start in 1 minute. If you could take your seats, please. Welcome everyone then to another busy day. Again, we have a lot to get through, so if I could encourage you to focus on the items to hand through the day, that would be very helpful. The daily report will be out shortly, so again, if you have any comments on that, please give that to the Secretariat. If I could hand to the Secretariat for any notes before we begin our agenda. Secretariat.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Just a few announcements on the meetings of the working groups that will take place at lunchtime. Budget working group is going to meet at 12:30. Institutional and cross-cutting will meet at 12:30, and they will address on first place the plastic pollution document, second place the restructuring of the Scientific Council, on third they will tackle climate change, and the idea is to prepare all the CRPs for these three items within the day so they can be taken up back in the room tomorrow morning. The strategic plan is going to be addressed at 1:30 in the SIGA room. It's going to be a short meeting just to finalize the CRP and have it ready for discussion again in the plenary tomorrow. Thank you. One final, sorry. The government of Uzbekistan has organized excursions for delegates on Friday afternoon, so if you wish to join the excursion, it's going to be a tour in the city of Samarkand. Please go to the welcome desk and sign up for the excursions on Friday starting at 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. If I could then move on to reports of the working groups, and if I could ask the credentials group to report, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Credentials Committee met again this morning to review a few additional credentials that had been received. So to total up what we've got so far, there were 92 countries registered for the Conference of Parties, and we received credentials from 74 of them. The committee assessed 69 as acceptable, but 3 of those countries are in arrears, so that makes it 66 countries eligible to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And then moving to the other working groups, could we have any report from the budget group, please? Yes, Kenya, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Budget Committee has had 3 meetings. We are trying to conclude our assignments this evening. We'll try to come up with the report to the COP. By this evening, we'll have a lunchtime meeting and possibly produce a report at the end of the day. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kenya. If I could then move to the thematic groups and begin with the aquatic group, please.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to report that the aquatic group has dealt with all of the agenda items that we had. There are currently 3 outstanding items which I anticipate will certainly resolve two of those very quickly today, and that's on bycatch 27.1.1 and on recreational in-water interactions 27.3.1. We have a subgroup that's currently looking at 27.2.4 deep sea mining, and that group is being coordinated by Jack Collier of the UK. I haven't spoken to him yet this morning, but they met at 7:30. And we are hoping that we can meet lunchtime today at about 1:45 in the room where we have been meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And terrestrial, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The working group completed discussions on two documents, pastoralism and the joint CITES CMS African Carnivore Initiative, which are resulting in CRPs. The group also recommended the listing of 3 species, guanaco in Appendix 2, Eurasian lynx in Appendix 2, and the Balkan subspecies in Appendix 1, and Pallas cat in Appendix 2. The working group also recommended approving concerted actions for the Eurasian lynx and Pallas cat. The discussions on documents on the jaguar and Central Asian Mammals Initiative will resume and be finalized in the working group today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If we could then have the avian group, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to report that the Avian Working Group has managed to review all documents, the majority of them closed. We just have 4 where we're expecting just a few minor comments. So we hope to be able to finalize those in our session just after this. Those 4 documents are 28.1 Rev 1 on illegal killing, 28.4.1 flyways, 28.4.2 on the Central Asian flyway, and 31.3 on potential avian taxa for listing. Again, just a few minor details that we're finalizing there.
Thank you. And then finally, the institutional and cross-cutting group, please. Yes, Scientific Council.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to report on the 7 agenda items that we discussed yesterday in the cross-cutting working group. I'm pleased to report that we have survived the discussions, which were sometimes difficult, but mostly very encouraging, and I thank the entire group for their energy and constructive engagement in all the issues. So at lunchtime, we discussed document 30.2.2 on the trans-frontier conservation areas. There were valuable and insightful discussions, and a CRP is now available. For document 30.3.1, Rev 1 on infrastructure, we still have some square bracketed text which is awaiting EU coordination, which I understand is happening currently. Then it's expected to come back to the working group. In the evening, we discussed document 24 on the review mechanism and national legislation. This was agreed, this was discussed, and the text for the CRP was agreed. Document 30.4.3 on wildlife disease, which you may remember is a large document containing 2 resolutions and decisions. So the working group agreed on the text of the document. The CRP will be available shortly on the website. For document 26, Rev 1 on range, state and vagrant, the working group discussed the matter and agreed that the COP should, in its meeting report, appreciate the work undertaken by the Scientific Council on implementation of Decision 13.140 and note the report contained in the document, which is document 26, Rev 1, Implementation of Decision 13.140, Guidance on the Use of the Term Vagrant. No further comments were raised on document 21, State of the World Migratory Species, and the CRP should be available shortly. For Lastly, for agenda item 15.1 on the restructuring of the Scientific Council, and this is ongoing, we have one outstanding issue, and I understand that some additional text has been sent to the Secretariat, and then this can come back to the working group. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the working group members and chairs for very good progress indeed. Thank you. Let's move on then to look at the CRPs, and I'll hand over to Secretariat to make some announcements. Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair. We have a large number of CRPs that have been posted, making them eligible for discussion as of the afternoon session. CRP 24, Review Mechanism and National Legislation Program. 27.2.2 Rev 1, Marine Noise. 27.3.1 Annex 2, Guidelines for Recreational In-Water Interactions with Marine Wildlife. 27.4.2, Important Shark and Ray Areas. 27.4.3 Rev 1, Seagrass Ecosystems. 27.5.1, Conservation Priorities for Cetaceans. 27.5.3, Sirenians, Pinnipeds, and Otters. 27.6.1, Marine Turtles. 27.6.2, Single Species Action Plan for the Hawksbill Turtle. 27.7.1, Single Species Action Plan for the Angel Shark in the Mediterranean Sea. 27.7.2, Freshwater Fish, including the European eel. 29.1, Joint CITES CMS African Carnivores Initiative. 29.7, Pastoralism and Migratory Species. 30.2.2, Transfrontier Conservation Areas for Migratory Species. 30.2.3 Rev 1, Community Participation and Livelihoods. 30.3.2 Renewable Energy and Migratory Species. And finally, 30.4.2 on insect decline. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. We do have a number of CRPs that we can look to consider and recommend for adoption at this point, and these were published yesterday. So what I intend to do is go through the CRPs that are completed in terms of working group process and have come back to the Committee of the Whole for our thoughts at this point. So the first one I'd like to look at is document 13.3, which is a draft resolution enhancing engagement with the Global Environment Facility. Could I ask if there are any comments on document 13.3? Somalia. Sorry, I think it's the appointed councillor.
Thank you very much. It was just a point of clarification following from the list that the Secretary just read out. 27.3.1, recreational in-water interactions. That document has not been fully cleared yet by the working group. There's only a minor point that needs clarification there, but at this stage we wouldn't want to discuss that. Thank you.
Thank you, appointed councillor, for that. United Kingdom, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We don't have any comments on this text, but we do have a comment more generally about the handling of the CRPs. We're very grateful to all parties and the Secretariat for the progress we have made thus far this week, and to the Secretariat for their work to ensure the CRPs incorporated all the written submissions they have received. But that said, we are concerned about the issue of version control when it comes to the CRPs. We understand it's not common practice to show CRP text on the screen in this room. However, we're concerned that for some CRPs, there may have been more than one version posted online already, and that some parties may not have reviewed the latest version, depending on when they have downloaded each CRP. We know that this has happened with at least one agenda item. We would greatly appreciate it if the Secretariat could confirm if more than one version has been issued when they introduce each item, and if there have been more than one version, and if technology allows that this text be shown on the screen here. I think this will facilitate ensuring that we're all agreeing the same document. Thank you.
Thank you, United Kingdom. That's a very important point that you raise. Secretariat, do you want to comment on that before we proceed?
Thank you very much for that comment, United Kingdom. On the website for in-session documents, the hyperlink for the CRP includes a reference to whether there has been a revision. So it'll have the CRP number, then Rev, and then underneath the file, there'll be a date stamp that shows when the document, the date anyway, not the time, but the date that the document was loaded. But I will talk to our document team to see if we can make something more precise so that it's clear to all when the documents were loaded. Thank you.
Norway, please.
Thank you, Chair. We echo the sentiments of the UK. It's very complicated to see new texts in the CRPs, and we would be happy if, at least for the future, we could have some marked track changes that would make our task easier in seeing what is new. We have a small delegation. We are not able to attend every working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Norway. And in terms of versions, I believe the CRPs, CRPs that we will look at this morning now are the final versions. So we note the points from the United Kingdom. They will work to make it a simpler system. Thank you. Can I take us back then to document 13.3, the draft resolution enhancing engagement with the Global Environment Facility? Are there any comments? UNDP, please. Sorry, UNDP, I'm not sure if you want to comment. I'll go to European Union in the meantime and then come back if we need to. European Union, please.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just a question. So the paper won't be put up on the screen, so I can just explain. It's just a comment on the preambular para where it states, noting that the strategic plan for migratory species for the period, and then it continues. And we just would like to put this between squared brackets, just because, the strategic plan has not yet been adopted. So as soon as it's adopted, we could lift the square brackets. And then maybe also we wanted to add, mindful of the need to avoid creating additional reporting burden that risk diverting attention from implementation. We submitted that comment in writing, but it was not included, so we wondered if this could still be added. However, we are flexible on this addition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, European Union. Thank you, European Union. I wonder if you could read your insertion again, indicate where you'd like it, and at dictation speed, please, and we'll try and approve the document now.
Thank you. I think it could be coming at the end of the second para that indeed starts with noting that the strategic plan for migratory species, and then it continues. And so the additional sentence would read, mindful of the needs to avoid creating additional reporting burdens that risk diverting attention from implementation. So it could come as a second para after the second one.
Thank you, EU. Do you have any further comments on the paper or on the amendment from the EU? So we would square bracket round for the period 24 to 32 in the second introductory paragraph until hopefully it's approved. And then at the end of that paragraph, we would add mindful of the need to avoid creating additional reporting burdens that risk diverting attention from implementation. With these changes, can I take the document as recommended for adoption by the COP? I believe I can. Thank you, EU, for these additions, and agreed. Thank you. The second CRP I'd like to go to then is document 20, which is the draft decisions on the Atlas of Animal Migration. And again, are there any further comments?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates. This CRP has been prepared following the discussion in the Committee of the Whole, where a number of delegations appreciated the work on the Atlas, and the comments on drafting suggestions were very limited and just updating some technical information in the document. So based on this, the Secretariat prepared a CRP which is now presented to the committee for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Are there any further comments on document 20? If not, can we then recommend for adoption? European Union.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, but we still have, we are still not completely consulted on the para 14cc, where it states the Scientific Council is requested subject to availability of resources. So this could either be dropped for us, or we replace it by subject to the availability of external resources. But yeah, so one of these two could work for us.
Thank you, EU. The suggestion then is on 14cc, the chapeau, the Scientific Council is requested subject to the availability of external resources to an NREAD zone. With that small change, are there any other comments? Thank you very much. Can I then take it that we recommend this for adoption? We do. Thank you very much. I'd like then to move to document 27.1 Rev 1, which is the draft decisions on fish aggregating devices. And again, are there any comments? If there are no further comments, then can we recommend this paper for adoption? We can indeed. So done. And then moving on to document 27.1 Rev 2, which is the draft decision on the maltreatment and mutilation of seabirds in fisheries. And again, are there any comments on this document? I don't see any requests for the floor, so again, can we recommend this for adoption? And indeed we can. Thank you very much. And then moving on to document 27.2.3 Rev 1, the draft resolution reducing the risk of vessel strikes for marine megafauna. Again, any comments? If there are none, can we recommend this for adoption? And indeed we can. Thank you. And moving on to... Sorry, just a second. Okay, let's move on then to document 27.4.1, and we're asked to take note of the Annex 1 adopted decision and delete decisions 13.54 and 13.57 on this one. Can I ask if there are any further comments? If there are none, can we recommend for adoption? And indeed we can. Thank you. And moving on then to document 28.5.1 Rev 2, a draft resolution action plan for birds. And on this one, we are asked to get the Secretariat to clarify. Adopt the decisions in Annex 2 of the paper. And amendments to the resolution Rev COP14 in Annex 1. Can I ask if there are any comments on the draft resolution action plan for birds, document 28.5 Rev 2? Secretariat, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, under the agenda item 28.5, the Secretariat wishes to introduce the document 28.5.1 Rev 2, Action Plans for Birds. This document was prepared by the Secretariat and revisions posted to include updates and changes related to the submission of revised action plan documents submitted by parties. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Avian Species Working Group. A CRP has been published at the website. This document contains two annexes. Annex 1 contains proposed amendments to Resolution 12.12 Rev COP13. Annex 2 contains draft decisions. The document also has an addendum where the Scientific Council's comments and recommendations to the COP are provided. There are also related information documents, INF 28.5.1a and INF 28.5.1b, which contain reports from implementing partners on projects delivering on actions of the Single Species Action Plan for the Far Eastern Curlew. In summary, the document reports on progress to implement Resolution 5.9, Rev COP12, endorsement of action plans for selected Appendix 1 and 2 migratory birds, and Resolution 12.12, Rev COP13, action plans for birds, as well as the related decisions 1347 and 1348. Meanwhile, the action plan for the yellow-breasted bunting has been finalized and adopted by the Standing Committee in line with Decision 1348 in November 2023. The document further highlights the development processes for 3 new single-species action plans. For the Christmas Island frigate bird, contained in document 28.5.2 Rev 1, which will be introduced by the Government of Australia afterwards. For the great bustard in Asia, contained in document 28.5.3 Rev 1, which will be introduced by the Government of Mongolia later. Both are proposed for adoption through the draft amendments of Resolution 12.12 Rev COP13, and the action plan for the Sooty falcon, which is addressed in a draft decision in Annex 2 of this document. Therefore, in terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft amendments to Resolution 12.12 Rev COP13 contained in Annex 1 of this document, and to adopt the draft decisions as contained in Annex 2 of the document. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. With that background information, could I ask if there are any further comments on document 28.5 Rev 2, the draft resolution action plan for birds? If there are no further comments, can we then recommend for adoption? And indeed we can. Thank you very much. And moving on to the final CRP for this particular moment, document 30.1.2 Rev 3, the aquatic wild meat and action plan to address aquatic wild meat harvest in West Africa. And here we're asked to note the report in the annex, adopt the resolution and action plan in Annex 2 and Annex 3, adopt decisions in Annex 4, and delete decisions 13.64 and 13.65. Can I ask if there are any further comments on this document? If there are no comments, then can I suggest that we recommend for adoption? And indeed we can. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. These are very important papers that we've just approved for adoption, so thank you indeed for that. We return then to the agenda for the morning, and we'll move on to paper 28.5.1, which is the action plan for birds, and indeed we're in the section dealing with action plan for birds more generally, 28.5. So action plans for birds, paper 28.5.1, and if I could ask the Secretariat to introduce, please. You may have already covered all the points that you want to make because you were slightly ahead of the agenda. So we'll move on. Could I ask if there are any comments then on the action plans for birds in item 28.5.1? Thank you. Bangladesh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Bangladesh is concerned about the threatened status of this unique species, the Indian skimmer, that migrates annually between Bangladesh and India. We support the development of single species action plan for this species as a basis for prioritization of international cooperation and conservation action across its range, as is currently worded in the decision 14.AA. However, Bangladesh recognizes that we should progress listing of the species under appendix at the earliest. We look forward to developing such a listing, working closely with India and technical experts in the intersessional period for consideration of the next COP. We therefore propose a small amendment to draft decision 14.AA to add this point, and we will send this by email to the Secretariat shortly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Bangladesh, for these comments. Can I ask if there are any other comments to come? Let me just check with Secretariat, please. We'll just take a second for the Secretariat to discuss the next steps on this paper. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. We have a clarification. If I could ask Bangladesh whether you have any textual text changes to the draft resolution on 28.51. We have just agreed the CRP Rev 2 in Risk Committee this morning. But what we can do is, if you want to make some amendments, we would need you to read out the text changes at dictation speed, or it may just be a general point that you wanted to make. I wonder if you could help, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will send it within shortest possible time with track changes.
Could you read the change now, please, if you have it?
I will send it shortly.
Thank you. Just in procedural terms, we have this morning on the CRP agreed the decision. So if you would like to send in any comments so we can look at these, we may need to come back to this in the COW later on today to see if there is any substantive change to the text. So we will return to this once we've seen the comments from Bangladesh. Thank you very much. Can I check then if there are any further comments in this area, document 28.5 Rev 2? Thank you very much. We will return to that briefly once we have clarification of any further comments received. Can we move on then to 28.5.2, the action plan for the Christmas Island frigate bird? And I believe this is going to be introduced by a representative from the Government of Australia. Australia, please.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates. Under Agenda Item 28.5.2, the Government of Australia wishes to introduce the document Doc 28.5.2 Rev 1, Christmas Island Frigate Bird Single Species Action Plan. This document was prepared by the Australian Government and is co-sponsored by the Government of the Philippines. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Avian Species Working Group. This document contains two annexes. Annex 1 contains the Single Species Action Plan for the conservation of the Christmas Island frigate bird. Annex 2 contains a copy of the decision made at the 11th meeting of partners of the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership to unanimously approve the action plan in March 2023. The document also contains an addendum where Scientific Council's comments and recommendations to the COP are provided. The Christmas Island frigate bird is a threatened migratory seabird. It has a small population which breeds within a tiny area of occupancy on just one island in Australia's jurisdiction and is continuing to decline. When birds are not breeding on Christmas Island, the species has been found across the area of the Indo-Malay archipelago, over the Sunda Shelf to the South China Sea, Andaman Sea, Gulf of Thailand, Sulu Sea, off the coast of the southwest Sulawesi and the Philippines. The seas around West Java in Indonesia also seem particularly important during the non-breeding season, especially in Jakarta Bay. To coordinate and enhance conservation efforts to benefit Christmas Island frigate birds, the Australian Government developed a single species action plan to enhance protection of the species among range states. A single species action plan will assist by identifying and prioritising national and international management and research actions across key range states to address threats such as bycatch in fishing gear, illegal hunting, prey depletion due to fishing, heavy metal contamination, marine debris, and weed encroachment on roosting habitat across the species range. The action plan at Annex 1 includes a comprehensive biological assessment of the species, and it identifies and prioritises threats. The action plan outlines national policies and legislation relevant for the species management and sets out a framework for action and recovery. The action plan was presented to the 11th meeting of partners of the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership held in Brisbane, Australia in March 2023. Minor editorial comments were made during the plenary and were incorporated as appropriate. The action plan was unanimously approved by partners. A copy of the decision is appended at Annex 2. It is important to note that Australia and the Philippines are the only two range state countries party to CMS at the moment. This is why both Australia and the Philippines presented the action plan to the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership meeting, given the broader representation of range countries in that forum. In terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt, as part of the draft amendments to Resolution 12.12 Rev COP14, the International Single Species Action Plan for the conservation of the Christmas Island frigatebird contained in Annex 1 of this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. Thank you for the work underpinning this initiative as well. Could I open the floor for any comments, please? Yes, Philippines.
So, thank you, Chair. Having sponsored the resolution listing the Christmas Island frigatebird under CMS Appendix 1 during the 12th CMS COP in Manila way back in 2017, the Philippines is thankful to the Government of Australia for moving us forward from listing to the development of a species action plan through a consultative process. We are glad to co-sponsor this action plan and joins Australia in endorsing approval by the parties to provide guidance in addressing the most critical threats of the Christmas Island frigatebird. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Philippines. BirdLife International, please.
Thank you, Chair. BirdLife supports the Single Species Action Plan for the Christmas Island frigatebird and thanks the Government of Australia for championing it. We greatly welcome the ongoing synergies between CMS and the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership on this species work. BirdLife urges all range states to support the plan and seek ways to implement all actions. The BirdLife Partnership stands ready to support implementation of action alongside range states. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, BirdLife International. Bangladesh, please.
Thank you, Chair. I want to go back for the 28.5.1.
Thank you, Bangladesh. I wonder, could we conclude this point and then I'll come back to you on the previous one, if that's okay?
Okay, thank you.
Can I check if there are any other comments at this point on the document 28.5.2, Rev 1, the Christmas Island frigatebird single species action plan? I don't see any other comments. I don't think there is any CRP on this paper, so we could recommend for adoption. Note that the paper does include amendments to Resolution 12.12 as well. Can I take it that we are content to recommend for adoption? I believe we are indeed. So, adopted. Thank you. Yes, Bangladesh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Page 11, first para. Draft decision was directed to parties and non-parties, IGOs, NGOs, and other relevant stakeholders. 14.AA. Parties and non-parties, particularly those being range states of the Indian schema, together with relevant organizations and stakeholders, are encouraged to make rapid progress on the development of, I want to addition from here, a proposal for listing the species under CMS Appendix 1, as well as a proposal for a single species action plan and its implementation, including further investigation of the status of the species. And from here, I want to delete and to report progress and options for future action under CMS for consideration at COP15. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bangladesh. Let me just consult with the Secretariat for a moment. Thank you, Bangladesh. I'll ask the Secretariat just to read that amendment so that we're very clear on the suggested change. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So again, as Bangladesh proposed, it's an amendment to Decision 14.AA directed to parties and non-parties, IGOs, NGOs, and other relevant stakeholders. So I'll read it quite slowly so everybody can fully capture the words. Parties and non-parties, particularly those being range states of the Indian skimmer, Rhynchops albicollis, together with relevant organizations and stakeholders, are encouraged to make rapid progress on the development of a proposal for listing the species under CMS Appendix 1 and a single species action plan and its implementation, including further investigation of the status of the species. Full stop.
Thank you, Secretariat. Can I check if there are any further comments on that suggested amendment? Bangladesh, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Secretary told that full stop upon the status of this species, but full stop will be of the status of this species for consideration at COP15. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Bangladesh, for that clarification. India, please.
Thank you, Chair. We support the amendment proposed by Bangladesh. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, India. With that suggested amendment to paragraph 14AA, are we content then to recommend that revision for adoption to the plenary session? I believe we are, so thank you for that. And thank you, Bangladesh, for that clarification. Can we move on then to 28.5.3, which is the action plan for the great bustard in Asia? I'll ask a representative of the government of Mongolia to introduce this item, please.
Mr. Chair, firstly, using this opportunity, the delegation from Mongolia would like to extend our deepest thanks to the government of Uzbekistan for the nation's tremendous hospitality and skillful organization of this COP. Distinguished delegates, on the agenda item 28.5.3, the government of Mongolia wishes to introduce the document 28.5.3 revision number 1. The action plan for the great bastards in Asia, which contains the text of the action plan in an annexure. This action plan was prepared as an activity under the Concerted Action Plan for Great Bastards in Asia, initiated at CMS COP12 and extended at COP13. Development of this action plan was coordinated by the Mongolian government with support from the Eurasian Bastard Alliances and also Wildlife Science and Conservation Center of Mongolia. The action plan was created with scientific contributions and the review of more than 30 countries, experts from all the Asian range states of the Great Bastard, and the review of the governments from all parties participating in the concerted action. We appreciate the review from the government of Hungary, which is a key actor in the Memorandum of Understanding on the conservation and management of Middle European populations of the Great Bastard, which has extensive experiences in conservation of the Great Bastard. We draw attention of national delegates that in December 2023, the global status of the great bustard has been uplisted to endangered due to steep and ongoing declines of the species across much of its range. The action plan will serve as a guiding document for urgently needed conservation work in Asia. We encourage adoption of this action plan and welcome support and mobilization of resources from range states, parties, and NGOs for its implementation in coming years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mongolia. Could I ask if there are any comments on the action plan for the great bustard in Asia? Kazakhstan, please.
Dear delegates, thank you, Chair. The government of Kazakhstan would like to take a floor and support action plan, adoption of the action plan for the great bustard in the Asia, and also additional to say gratitude to the government of the Mongolia to take a leadership of the updating on the action plan and put for the agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kazakhstan. IUCN, please.
Thank you, Chair and distinguished delegates. IUCN supports adoption of the action plan for great bustards in Asia. Experts from every Asian range state, including members of the IUCN SSC Bustard Specialist Group, have contributed material and review to this document. This plan includes a comprehensive report on the status and ecology of the great bustard in Asia. It presents conservation activities as prioritized by scientists and conservation organizations working on the ground to improve the status of this endangered species. IUCN urges range states to mobilize resources for the implementation of this plan and invites organizations and donors to contribute towards high-priority actions, including enhancement of anti-poaching activities, protection of breeding sites, and careful siting of power lines to minimize collisions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, IUCN. I don't see any other requests for the floor, so I think we could recommend this for adoption if you're content. So, action plan for the great bustard in Asia, document 28.3 Rev 1. We recommend for adoption. Thank you. Can we move on then to item 28.6, which is the African Eurasian vulture. It's document 28.6 Rev 1. And I would ask the Secretariat to introduce this item. Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates. Under the agenda item 28, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 28.6 Rev 1, Conservation of African Eurasian Vultures, which was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Avian Working Group, and soon a CRP will be produced. The document contains two annexes. Annex 1 contains the proposed amendment to Resolution 1210, and Annex 2 contains draft decision. The document also has an addendum where the Scientific Council recommends to adopt the document to the COP. The document highlights the progress in implementing Resolution 1210, which endorsed the Vulture Multi-Species Action Plan and Decision 1350-53. Because of the lack of resources for establishing a coordinating framework as envisaged in the plan, 3 NGOs agreed to support on a voluntary basis the implementation of the Vulture Multi-Species Action Plan through a coordination team facilitated by the Secretariat. The team meets regularly to monitor the implementation of the plan. A midterm implementation review has been prepared by the Secretariat in cooperation with these NGOs and others, and launched at the side event yesterday here at COP14. The Secretariat has worked with the CITES Secretariat through the West African Vulture Working Group that has produced CITES decision endorsed at CITES COP19 and several of the proposed decisions in this document. Significant progress has been made for the conservation of vultures in regions where significant funding was available. Overall, there is still a urgent need to enhance coordination capacity. Therefore, in terms of the action, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft amendment to Resolution 1210 contained in Appendix 1 of this document, adopt the draft decisions contained in Appendix 2 of this document, and delete Decision 1350 to 53. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I believe from what you said there will be a CRP on this document, so thank you. Can I open the floor for any comments at this point? If there are none, then we will come back to this item when the CRP is available. So thank you for that. Can we move on then to item 28.7, which is the Saker-Falcon Global Action Plan, and it's document 28.7 Rev 1. And Secretariat again to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates. Under the Agenda 28, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 28.7 Rev 1, Saker-Falcon Global Action Plan, which was prepared by the Saker-Falcon Task Force in cooperation with the Secretariat. A discussion on the document has taken place in the Avian Working Group, and a CRP is on his way for discussion in the COW. This document contains two annexes. Annex 1 contains the proposed amendment to Resolution 1118 Rev COP12, and Annex 2 contains draft decisions. The document also has an addendum where the Scientific Council recommends the COP to adopt the document. The document highlights the progress in implementing Resolution 1118 Rev COP12, which endorsed the Saker-Falcon Global Action Plan and mandate the Saker Task Force to actively promote the plan's implementation through the development of an adaptive management framework. The species is of cultural significance in many parts of its range. However, Saker-Falcon population have suffered rapid decline driven by threats including electrocution, unsustainable trapping for falconry purposes, and habitat degradation across its global range. The Saker-Falcon Task Force has achieved a great deal, both looking at the western and easternmost population, while the Central Asian population are still rapidly declining. Much remains to be done, and in particular, there is an urgent need to complete the design of the adaptive management framework for the species and to update and review the Global Action Plan or the Saker-Falcon to provide a renewed focus for the conservation of the species. Therefore, in terms of the action, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft amendment to Resolution 1210 contained in Annex 1 and adopt the decision contained in Appendix 2 of this document and delete Decision 1350 to 1353. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. If I could open the floor for comments. There will be a CRP on this item as well. I don't see any requests for the floor, so we will return to this when the CRP is available. Thank you. Can we move on then to item 29, which is terrestrial species conservation issues, so 29.1 is terrestrial species conservation issues, 29.1 is the joint CITES CMS African Carnivore Initiative, and I'd ask the Secretariat to introduce, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Distinguished delegates, under this agenda item, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 29.1/Rev1. This document was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Terrestrial Working Group yesterday evening. This document has one annex, which contains a set of decisions. The document also has an addendum, which provides general comments of the Scientific Council and its recommendations to the COP to adopt the document. In summary, the document reports on the implementation of Resolution 13.4 on the joint CITES CMS African Carnivores Initiative and decisions 13.86 to 13.87. Has directed the Secretariats of CMS and CITES, as well as the IUCN CAT Specialist Group, developed in close consultation with the range states a comprehensive program of work which incorporates all decisions relating to the African cheetah, leopard, lion, and wild dog under CMS and CITES, and which was approved by the standing committees of CITES and CMS in 2021. In 2023, with funding received from Belgium, the European Union, and Switzerland, the Secretariats of CITES and CMS jointly organized the second range state meeting of the ACI, at which range states prioritized actions contained in the program of work for implementation. One of the actions concerning possible amendments to the list of cheetah populations presently excluded from CMS Appendix 1 to reflect the current conservation status was separately discussed by the Scientific Council. The recommendations of the Council are contained in this document. Priority results across all sub-regions of the ACI range states revolved around funding and finance, partnerships and cooperation between range states and other institutions and stakeholders, conflict and coexistence between ACI species and humans, illegal trade, resource kits for the 4 species, disease management, an operational African lion database, and an ACI web portal. We are pleased to inform you on this occasion that the CMS Secretariat has signed an MOU with IUCN to cooperate on the establishment of a funding mechanism under the IUCN SOS program to increase funding for the implementation of the ACI program of work. In terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft decisions as contained in CRP 29.1, which is already online. And there has also only been a small change to the document in decision directed to the governments of Botswana, Namibia, and Zimbabwe to submit their report in the second quarter of 2024 rather than in the first quarter of this year. And the second recommendation to COP is to delete decisions 13.86 to 13.87, 13.88 to 13.91, 13.92 to 13.95, and 13.96 to 13.97. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. So there is a CRP available for this issue, which we will return to later in the Committee of the Whole, but I'll open the floor for comments on this now. Yes, CITES, please.
Thank you, Chair. As indicated in the document prepared by the CMS Secretariat, the parties to CITES adopted a number of decisions relating to the joint CITES-CMS African Carnivores Initiative, as well as decisions on cheetah, leopard, and lion. The CITES Secretariat is in the process of implementing the decisions for which funding was secured. The CITES Secretariat would like to thank the European Commission, Switzerland, the Federal Government of Belgium and the Flemish Government for the generous funding for the second range states meeting of the joint CITES-CMS African Carnivores Initiative, and Uganda for hosting the meeting. The prioritized result areas in the ACA program of work, especially those with high conservation importance as agreed by the range states during the ACI meeting, were noted by the CITES Animals Committee at its meeting in 2023. The CITES Secretariat will continue to support the range states in the implementation of these areas within its mandate and in collaboration with CMS. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CITES, and thank you for the cooperation that we have between the two organisations through conventions on many issues. If there are no other requests for the floor, then we will move on. We will come back to this on the CRP. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Uganda.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Chair, I'll be very brief. I just want to thank the Secretariat for having partnered with Uganda to host the second meeting of the range states of the joint site CMS African Carnivore Initiative. Chair, I want to report that this is the second time that Uganda was hosting this meeting after having another successful session around 2016. Chair, Uganda appreciates the support from partners and the guidance, the continuous guidance that we've received from the Secretariat. And we do appreciate the preparation of this document. We urge you parties and the 9 parties that are range states to the African Carnivore Initiative to support implementation of the decisions outlined in the document 29.1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Uganda. Thank you for your support to the initiative as well. India, please.
Thank you, Chair. India notes that the joint CITES CMS African Carnivores Initiative is a workable mechanism to deliver on the comprehensive conservation of the most emblematic African carnivore species across the African continent, and welcomes the efforts taken by the range countries, CMS Secretariat and the CITES Secretariat in this direction. India has taken a lead in conservation of big cats in the region, with more than 70% of population of tigers and the only surviving population of Asiatic lions in India. We have been successful in our efforts to conserve these species in the wild. The same conservation success stories also apply to other big cats found in India, namely the leopard and the snow leopard. We have also initiated transcontinental reintroduction for cheetah into India with kind support of the governments of Namibia and South Africa. Honorable Prime Minister of India launched an international big cat alliance for the conservation of 7 big cats, namely tiger, lion, leopard, snow leopard, cheetah, jaguar, and puma. The alliance aims to reach out to all range countries of these 7 big cat species for strengthening global cooperation and efforts to conserve these species in the wild. India invites the CMS parties, non-parties, intergovernmental and non-governmental organizations to join the International Big Cat Alliance. India encourages parties and non-parties that are range states to the African Carnivores Initiative for taking up the program of work for ensuring effective implementation of the program of work and resolution 13.4. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, India, and thank you for the information in relation to a really impressive initiative, so thank you. Senegal, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Senegal is one of the range states of this important initiative, which is coordinated by 2 major conventions. I believe that this initiative will undoubtedly contribute to strengthening the conservation of these highly threatened species, which face threats such as loss of habitat and human activities which threaten the survival of these species. This is why we support this initiative and we can support the adoption of this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. I don't see any other requests for the floor. There will be a CRP in due course on this, and we will return to the item then. Thank you very much. Can we move on then to item 29.2.1, which is the Sahelo-Saharan Megafauna Concerted Action. And again, the Secretariat will introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, under agenda item 29.2.1, the Secretariat wishes to introduce the document 29.2.1 Rev 1, report on the implementation of the concerted action for Sahelo-Saharan megafauna. The document was prepared by the Secretariat, and discussions on the document took place in the Terrestrial Working Group. The document reports on the implementation of the concerted action for Sahelo-Saharan megafauna, as well as Decision 13.101. The document contains a recommendation to extend the range of CMS work on Sahelo-Saharan megafauna and to close the concerted action, carrying over incomplete activities to the future direction of the concerted action, the Sahelo-Saharan Megafauna Initiative, as proposed by the government of Morocco in document 29.2.2 that will be discussed in the next agenda item. The document also has an addendum which provides the Scientific Council's recommendations to COP14 to close the concerted action. As required, the Secretariat completed the following activities to implement the concerted action with funding from the government of Germany. It undertook a stock-taking of the past and ongoing activities in the region related to the concerted action, the preparation of an updated action plan for Sahelo-Saharan megafauna, and the organization of the third regional seminar on the conservation and restoration of Sahelo-Saharan megafauna in March 2023 in Morocco. At this meeting, the Secretariat consulted the range states on the possibility of extending the concerted action as instructed by the Scientific Council in relation to Decision 13.101. The range states unanimously agreed to recommend to COP14 that the concerted action be extended to the Danakil and adjoining desert and semi-desert, as well as the addition of the African wild ass. The scenario also provides an opportunity to add Summering's gazelle to the concerted action if and when it is listed in CMS. Consequently, this report contains a recommendation to COP14 from the Scientific Council to extend the area and species covered by the concerted action to the Danakil and adjoining desert and semi-desert and the addition of the African wild ass. If COP14 accepts the range states and the Scientific Council's recommendation, it would then be requested to delete Decision 13.101. Should the African wild ass be included in the concerted action, and should COP14 adopt the amendments to Resolution 9.21 Rev COP13, proposing the establishment of a Sahelo-Saharan Megafauna Initiative, the roadmap for the conservation of the African wild ass would then be added to the action plan contained in Annex 2 of document 29.2.2. The Terrestrial Working Group agreed with the recommendations contained in the document to extend the concerted action as recommended by the range states and Scientific Council, and to close the concerted action in view of the recommendations in the document in the next agenda item to establish a Sahelo-Saharan Megafauna Initiative. No changes were made to the document in the Terrestrial Working Group. Therefore, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to extend the area of the concerted action to the Danakil and adjoining desert and semi-desert, and to add to it the African wild ass, to delete Decision 13.101, to close the concerted action on Sahelo-Saharan megafauna, and to remove the Sahelo-Saharan megafauna species from the list in Resolution 12.28, Concerted Actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretariat. We want just to clarify one point between members of the Secretariat, and then we'll open the floor. Thank you for your patience. If you could then have comments on document 29.2.1, Rev 1, on the concerted action for Sahelo-Saharan megafauna. This has been an important work area for the Convention over many years, and I know many of the delegates have been involved in the work itself. Ethiopia, please. I think there might be a microphone problem, is there? No?
microphone.
That is working now.
بعد السيب لا لا ايه الحكايه
I wonder if technological team could turn on the microphone for Ethiopia, please. Yeah, that's working now.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair, for giving a floor. As it is the first time for Ethiopia to take the floor, Ethiopia would like to extend its sincere gratitude to the government of Uzbekistan and its people for their excellent hospitality, and the CMS Secretariat for organizing this wonderful event. Mr. Chair, please also allow me to acknowledge the Secretariat for their remarkable effort to work on the document and come up with important draft decision which allow to obtain additional and pertinent scientific information on the critically endangered African wildlife, which is a top priority for agenda for range states, as well as for international conventions such as CITES and CMS. As a result, Ethiopia strongly supports the adoption of the recommended draft decision as annexed to this document and calls the parties to support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ethiopia. And can we go to Egypt, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Good morning to all of our colleagues. As you know, Mr. Chair and our colleagues, the issue, as you said, it is not a new issue regarding the Sahelo-Saharan megafauna concerted action. Certainly, we welcome the initiatives. At the same time, we have to make it very clear there are almost 16 Sahelo-Saharan megafauna species or range states and 8 species which were all globally threatened and have suffered severe reductions in range states. The main threats to this area were direct killing, habitat degradation, overgrazing, wood collection, climate change, insecurity, and armed conflicts, again in the background of severe development pressure, as well as under-resourcing and lack of awareness. Therefore, we welcome extending these concerted actions to cover the Nile and adjoining deserts and semi-desert to include African wild ass, and a roadmap for its conservation, and to establish and approve this initiative that proposed to us here. As you know, African wild ass was critically endangered, numbering around 200 mature individuals. Therefore, we would like to extend this to cover other species, especially species that are available here in Egypt, not only the owl dags, but oryx as well, and all other large mammals in Egypt. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Egypt. United Arab Emirates, please.
Thank you, Chair. The UAE commends the collective effort under the CMS framework aimed at conserving Sahalo-Sahara megafauna. The UAE, through Environment Agency Abu Dhabi, is proud to contribute significantly to these efforts, particularly through our active engagement in local and international conservation initiatives. Since 2014, the EID has spearheaded one of the largest reintroduction projects for scimitar horned oryx, addax, and damagazal in Chad, marking a significant milestone in the conservation of these species. This ambitious project has successfully translocated 285 scimitar horned oryx, 125 addax, and 5 damagazal, leading to a remarkable increase in their population in the wild, with approximately 650 scimitar horned oryx and 160 addax now thriving in Chad. Notably, this initiative has facilitated the reclassification of scimitar horned oryx as an endangered species, a significant improvement from its previous status of being extant in the wild, according to the IUCN. The UAE believes that the success of this project under-resources the importance of concentrated actions and collaborative efforts in revising the decline of endangered species. The positive impact of reintroduction program on the conservation status of species and highlights the UAE's commitment to biodiversity conservation. In light of our experience and achievement, the UAE proposed the inclusion of these efforts in the report on the implementation of the concentrated action of Sahalo-Saharan megafauna that acknowledge the significant contribution of range states, including UAE's effort in the conservation and successful reintroduction of species, such the scimitar horned oryx, addax, and damagazal. Such recognition will not only highlight the effective conservation strategies employed, but also encourage further international cooperation and support for similar initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, United Arab Emirates, for your intervention and for your support to this whole initiative. Can we move on then finally to Conservation Force and then Israel? Thank you. I will close after Israel. Conservation Force, please.
Thank you, Chair. And briefly, I just would like to highlight the positive benefits of the American game ranchers, especially in Texas, that have invested significant resources of their own to boost population of scimitar horned oryx, addax, and damagazal, and have contributed to the reintroduction in the wild. All these game ranchers rely on legal, regulated hunting to boost their populations and to fund their operations. We have established a program which is called Ranch for Restorations, whereby we are funding research and other activities for these species. And I can tell not on particular Sahalo-Sahara, but other species that we have funded extensive research on the Barasingha in India, and we are ready also to contribute further to this initiative. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Conservation Force. And finally, Israel, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, we welcome very much the initiative, as Israel has been very much part of the reintroduction of wildlife to this area, already going back almost 20 years. Back in 2011, Israel sent Saharan antelopes to be reintroduced in the Goamba Fauna Reserve in northwest Senegal. And even just last year, we are introducing ostriches into Senegal. and we continue our efforts in reintroduction programs in this region. We, of course, welcome the efforts by UAE and other partners in this. We would like to respond to the previous comment about the ranches in Texas. The ranches in Texas raise oryx, which are endangered species under the United States Endangered Species Act. And according to the rules of the U.S. government, in order to be able to hunt, they have to show that they're doing some conservation. So they contribute money to conservation projects, which is a way of them being able to get authorization from the Fish and Wildlife Service to allow hunting of these species, which otherwise are fully protected by U.S. law. A lot of this contribution of resources to the reintroduction programs is certainly welcome, but it seems to be a form of greenwash in our eyes, and we would prefer that the conservation projects would be as done in UAE and other places where it's raising the animals for actual reintroduction and not raising them for hunting by local hunters, as is done in Texas. So we are very much in favor of this initiative and look forward to continuing to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel, and again, thank you for your involvement and support of the initiative. Finally then on this, Senegal, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. Senegal has also contributed a lot to this concerted action, and it has contributed a lot to the restoration of the megafauna in the Sahelo-Saharan area. The Dorcas gazelle, the oryx, the scimitar horned oryx, and we've received 8 specimens, individuals, which were reintroduced. And today we have other sites which we're finding that the oryx are reproducing very well there. So we have other programs on ostriches and tortoises, and it's a very important program which was implemented since 1984 with the introduction of the Dama gazelle as the first. And today we would like to see this extended to the African wild ass, which has a very reduced range now and numbers, and we would like to see this taking place. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. These are very valuable interventions. I haven't seen any suggestions for change to the text of document 29.2.1 Rev 1, so I am proposing that we recommend it for adoption. By doing that, then we would be deleting decisions 13.101. We would close the concerted action on Sahelo-Saharan megafauna, but the next item on our agenda will broaden that initiative. And then we would remove the Saharan megafauna species from the list in resolution 12.28 on concerted actions, but the next item will explain why and take the initiative into the current environment, as it were. So with that, could I suggest that we recommend paper 29.2.1 Rev 1 for adoption, please? Thank you. Adopted. That's good. Can we move on then to 29.2.2, which is the Sahelo-Saharan Megafauna Initiative? And again, a representative of the government of Morocco will introduce this paper. Morocco, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable delegates, it is an honour to present document 29.2.2, which proposes an amendment to resolution 9.21 Rev COP14 on Sahelo-Saharan megafauna and aims to establish a Sahelo-Saharan megafauna initiative. And in accordance with activity 3 of the concerted action on the conservation and restoration of Sahelo-Saharan megafauna was held. We had a meeting in Magadia in Morocco in 2023, and we involved the range states and partner organizations and members of the Sahelo-Saharan interest group and the IUCN Antelope experts. We were able to evaluate the progress accomplished and to see the work on the protection. We heard about successful experiences with reintroduction and the strengthening of protection measures and the work that still needs to be done that encouraged all the range states and partners to continue with our work and to learn from our successes and also the areas that were less successful. So we considered the extension of the concerted actions to other species and biomes and to have a special initiative for Sahelo-Saharan megafauna, which would improve their conservation status and following the lead of initiatives such as the CAMI, the Central Asian Mammals Initiative. The Sahelo-Saharan Megafauna Initiative will allow us to better coordinate conservation activities across the 16 countries in the Sahel, Sahara, and the Danakil Desert, and the semi-desert areas that are adjacent. Burkina Faso, Egypt, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Mali, Morocco, Mauritania, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, South Sudan, Sudan, Chad, and Tunisia. The amendments brought to the concerted action include the extension of the area is the Horn of Africa Desert and the related desert and semi-desert areas, and we will add another species, bringing it to 9 species that would be covered by this initiative. So we'd have the Adax, the Barbary sheep, the Cuvier's gazelle, Dama gazelle, Dorcas gazelle, red-fronted gazelle, scimitar horned oryx, and the slender horned gazelle. So we recommend that the resolution as it appears in the CRP 29.2.2 document. Thank you.
Thank you, Morocco. There is a CRP recently available for this, so we will come back to this item later as well. Oh, I'm sorry. Advised by the Secretariat, we can take this and approve this now. Apologies. So can I open the floor for comments, please? Yes, European Union, please.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to request an amendment to the CRP. Under item 4, we request to remove the addition "subject to availability of resources" on the first line and suggest to add the following text to the second part of the paragraph after action planned and comma, "subject to the availability of external resources." Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Algeria, please.
Thank you, Chair. Given that it's the first time that Algeria takes the floor, we would like to thank the government of Uzbekistan for their warm hospitality, and we'd also like to thank the Secretariat of CMS for all the work and efforts put into ensuring a successful event. As we are a range state of a Sahelo-Saharan megafauna and with a high status of protection on a national level, we encourage the transfrontier, transboundary international projects for fauna, and we support the document as proposed in the amendments, and Indeed, our country has committed under several programs for the conservation of these species with genetic studies and with hunting reserves to ensure that these species are protected in captivity and semi-captivity as well, and working on conservation projects through awareness raising, and the survey results will soon be available. Thank you.
Thank you, Algeria. Can we go to Senegal, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Senegal supports this initiative and aligns the extension of endangered species and those that are critically endangered. So we support this initiative.
Thank you, Senegal. And finally on this then, Egypt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like others, Egypt supports this initiative and strongly in support of previous interventions, whether from EU, from Algeria, and from Senegal as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Egypt. I don't see any other requests for the floor. Can I just come back to the document on paragraph 4 as amended by the EU? So the wording there would be instruct the Secretariat subject to the availability of external resources, and then, no, EU, please? Yeah, I thought it would.
Thank you, Chair. So it would be striking out subject to the availability of resources on the first line. So it would read, the Secretariat to take up the role of coordinating the initiative and implementation of the action plan and, comma, adding, subject to the availability of external resources to convene regular range state meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, EU, for that clarification. I thought that was what you said first time round as well. Subject to that amendment by the EU, which is in that paragraph 4, so we would strike out on the first line, subject to the availability of resources. It would then read on to take up the role of coordinating the initiative and implementation of the action plan, and insert comma, subject to the availability of external resources, convene regular range state meetings, and then read on. Thank you. With that small suggested amendment, I think we can move to adopt this paper, if you are content. So if we are content then to adopt CMS COP14 CRP 29.2.2 on the Sahelo-Saharan Megafauna Initiative and the associated action plan that accompanies this initiative. I believe we are, so we will recommend for adoption. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Can we move on then to item 29.3, which is the Central Asian Mammal Initiative, and again the Secretariat will introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, distinguished delegates. Under agenda item 29.3, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 29.3, Rev 2, the Central Asian Mammals Initiative. This document was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion of the document has taken place in the Terrestrial Species Working Group. Amendments were proposed to the draft decisions and to the Resolution 11.24 Rev COP14. However, these discussions will continue tonight in the evening session of the working group, and therefore there is no CRP available at this stage. The document contains one annex with a set of draft decisions. The document also has an addendum which with comments and recommendations of the Scientific Council to the Conference of the Parties, which recommends to adopt the draft decisions. In summary, the document reports on the implementation of the Central Asian Mammals Initiative, Resolution 11.24 Rev COP13, during the intersessional period. This includes the activities carried out jointly by the CMS Secretariat and the Federal Agency for Nature Conservation of Germany, namely meetings on Bukhara deer, Persian leopard, hosted by the government of Georgia, Saiga antelope, hosted by the government of the Russian Federation, and for the Asiatic wild ass, which took place in Germany, and the meeting of the Intersessional Working Group of the Scientific Council on Linear Infrastructure. In addition, the following studies were commissioned: the feasibility study on community-based wildlife management in Central Asia, jointly with the German Federal Agency for Nature Conservation. It is in preparation. The technical report on the conservation status of the cheetah in Iran, with funding from the government of the UK. The revision of the study Transboundary Conservation Hotspots for the Central Asian Mammals Initiative, with funding from Switzerland and Germany. Also mentioned is the preparation of the Saiga Conservation and Management Strategy for Kazakhstan, and the successful contribution of the Secretariat to two fundraising efforts led by UNEP and IUCN under the International Climate Initiative of Germany. The document highlights a range of activities which could be implemented during the intersessional period between COP13 and COP14. This was due to several important factors: the long-standing cooperation with the German Federal Agency for Nature Conservation, which provides invaluable financial, technical, and logistical support; the financial and political support of the governments of Germany, Switzerland, and the UK; an active network of range state governments, scientists, other UN organizations, IUCN, and NGOs, in which information can be exchanged, funds raised, and collaboration enhanced. The Conference of the Parties is recommended to review and adopt the draft decisions relating to the revision of the CAMI program of work to focus on activities benefiting multiple species, and relating to completion and promotion of the two thematic studies on transboundary conservation priorities and community-based wildlife management in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Can I open the floor for comments? There will be a CRP to come on this item. If there are no requests for the floor, then we will move on. The CRP will come in due course and we'll return to the item then. Thank you very much. If we could then move on to item 29.4, a range of papers on the African elephant. First one is 29.4.1, the African Elephant Action Plan, and a representative of Cameroon or Zimbabwe will introduce it, I believe. Cameroon? Zimbabwe, please. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We appreciate the excellent handling of the business of this committee that you're presiding over. This document was prepared by Zimbabwe and co-sponsored by Cameroon. The document contains a proposal for amendment of Resolution 12.19 for the endorsement of the revised and updated African Elephant Action Plan for 2023. Mr. Chair, the African range states have accrued experience of the first 12 years of implementing the African Elephant Action Plan, drawing on the collective expertise of the range states as well as the technical support from the members of the IUCN Species Survival Commission African Elephant Specialist Group. The revised and updated African Elephant Action Plan was developed through 2 workshop sessions in Pretoria and in Nairobi, both in 2019. Progress in the revision was then delayed in 2022 due to the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. The revisions to the African Elephant Action Plan resumed later in the first half of 2021 and over the course of 2022 until a final revision was agreed by the range states in 2023. This plan presents all-inclusive and robust framework for continental priorities and objectives for the conservation of the African elephant in light of the recent development and remains a document that has been developed, owned, and managed by the range states. As such, it presents issues that were identified and experienced by Africans and the objectives that need to be addressed in order to effectively conserve African elephants across their range. An important development, Mr. Chair, that the African Elephant Action Plan for 2023 considered is the separation of the African elephant by the African Elephant Specialist Group of the monospecific African elephant Loxodonta africana into two species of Loxodonta africana, and which is the savanna elephant, and Loxodonta cyclotis, which is the forest elephant. Also new in the plan, Mr. Chair, is the ranking of the priority objectives to reflect the continental consensus that conflict between human and elephant is a priority that needs to be addressed with considerable urgency. There is also increased recognition of the need to understand and address the impacts of climate change in the management and planning for the African elephant conservation. The plan also recognizes that there is continually changing context of the elephant management and that some new developments may not be in this version, but may be better understood and included in future versions. Mr. Chair, this plan continues to present views of the range states, and as such is a document that reflects a consensus of the broad objectives and activities identified as being the most urgently required by the range states. It also forms the basis by which range states can submit proposals for funding and also other funding sources, serving as a guide even for any other donor support and conservation partners wishing to contribute towards conservation of the species of the elephants in Africa. In light of this background, Chair, comments on this document were received from the Scientific Council and taken into consideration. The document was also discussed in the Terrestrial Working Group, and the CRP on this agenda item was produced for consideration by this committee and recommend for its adoption by the COP. Thank you.
Thank you, Zimbabwe, for that introduction. Could I open the floor for any comments? Yes. Kenya, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kenya thanks Cameroon and Zimbabwe for preparing document COP14, document 29.4.1, highlighting the need for making amendments to Resolution 12.19 on endorsement of the African Elephant Action Plan. Kenya supports the amendments proposed and as presented in Annex 1 to this document to replace the 2020 edition of the African Elephant Action Plan with the 2023 edition and call for the CMS Secretariat to actively get involved as an ex officio of the African Elephant Fund Steering Committee for the implementation of the African Elephant Action Plan. Chairman, Kenya notes the comments by the Scientific Council in document COP14, document 29.4.1, and the addition 1 with the proposal to make additional changes to paragraph 2A and para 3 of the resolution 12.19. While Kenya agrees in principle on the need to explore new and innovative funding models, we consider that such models should not be limited to payment for ecosystem services, but rather such models should be to support implementation of the African Elephant Action Plan. In that regard, Chair, we wish to propose some little amendment in the resolution that will read like as follows. And the text will come after exploring new and innovative funding models, and you insert to support implementation of the African Elephant Action Plan. new and innovative funding models to support implementation of the African Elephant Action Plan. In that way, we'll be open to exploring many other options, not limited to one. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. I'll take some other comments and then suggest a way forward. European Union, please.
Thank you, Chair. Following on from our colleague's proposal, with regards to item 2A and item 3, we appreciate this effort to include the exploration of new and innovative funding models. However, we would prefer to speak about new and innovative funding instruments rather than speak about funding models. This is language used also in other fora and more adequately reflects the opportunities for such innovative approaches. We therefore suggest replacing the term funding models with funding instruments. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Uganda, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Uganda wishes to thank the proponents of this document. We thank Cameroon and Zimbabwe, as well as the Terrestrial Working Group for coming up with this document. Chair, Uganda is uniquely endowed with the two subspecies of the African elephant, as highlighted by Zimbabwe, namely the savanna elephant, Rhizodonta africana, and the newly discovered forest elephant, Rhizodonta cyclotis. Chair, we cannot say we have the third one, but we are observing some fertile hybrids around Chiwale National Park. Some research is continuing, but we positively report that at least we have a hybrid there that we need to continuously monitor and observe. Chair, the challenges have been clearly articulated, and we need to collaboratively work together to protect this endangered species. Uganda, therefore, commits to collaboratively work with other African range states to implement the action plan and achieve the desired CMS objectives. We support the suggested amendments by the European Union and Kenya to include new and innovative funding models, you may call them options or mechanisms. We accordingly endorse adoption of the 2023 revised plan and the suggested resolutions contained in the annex to document 29.4.1. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Uganda. Can I go to Benin, please?
Merci,
Thank you, Chair. Our delegation wishes to thank Zimbabwe and Cameroon for the proposal submitted to us. Recent studies have shown that the two subspecies of African elephant, the forest and savanna elephant, are both present in Benin. However, unfortunately, these species are threatened by loss of habitat. And obstruction of their migration routes. This is why, in Benin, we're undertaking efforts to protect these species. And we welcome, therefore, the proposals that have been submitted by Cameroon and Zimbabwe, and we support this revised and updated action plan. And we urge the CMS and parties to join in supporting this action plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Benin. I'll go to Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, and then Born Free, and I will close after that. So Senegal, please.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. We thank Zimbabwe and Cameroon for having prepared and presented this document. We also echo the comments made by Uganda as regards strengthening studies and monitoring of these elephants, particularly for countries which are home to both species and countries which are transboundary countries with crossing potential for the hybrid species. So this is all very important, particularly given that today we have two distinct species, the forest elephant and the savanna elephant. We fully support these amendments. Thank you.
Thank you, Senegal. Côte d'Ivoire.
Merci.
Thank you, Chair. We should also like to thank Cameroon and Zimbabwe for drafting this important document, which we support. I would also like to highlight that elephants in Côte d'Ivoire live in protected areas, in classified forests and nature reserves. However, they are still threatened because these areas are gradually decreasing in terms of surface area. So it's a constant challenge. And the government is undertaking all necessary measures in order to address this challenge. I would also like to highlight that a memorandum was signed among 13 countries of Western Africa to protect these elephants and enable them to move freely among these countries. Most of them are tagged, and this means that we're able to track their movements. That's a very important aspect because it enables us to track them. We've also received funding from several donors, and this funding has enabled our government to undertake efforts to protect these elephants. I believe that policies are currently being effectively developed in order to protect these elephants in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Côte d'Ivoire. I'll take Born Free Foundation, please.
Thank you, Chair. Born Free urges parties to adopt this document, and I think it is worth mentioning, bearing in mind, that there are 37 countries in Africa with elephants, and that the CMS has recognized the two species, Loxodonta africana and Loxodonta cyclotis, for many years. It's only recently that the IUCN Elephant Specialist Group has caught up with the CMS, but we welcome that. I think the minor edits by Kenya and the EU are very useful, and I would just say that Born Free is working with an initiative called Rebalance Earth on one of the novel funding mechanisms that we hope will help to fund elephant conservation, the mega gardeners of the forest and savanna across the whole of the continent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Born Free Foundation. Conservation Force, then CITES, and we will close then. So Conservation Force, please.
Thank you, Chair. We uploaded this new version of the African Elephant Action Plan. We believe it is a very important instrument for a series of reasons, Chair. First of all, because it should strengthen, and we hope it will strengthen, the dialogue that is much needed between African countries on the species. We need to come to a sure an important dialogue taking out all the possible conflicts which exist at present. And second, because the action plan could be an important instrument for some range states which are still lacking national management plans, while most, for example, of the Eastern and Southern African countries have proper management plans, and we are very honored to have contributed to some of them. Some of the Western and Central African countries still lacking proper national management plans. And this is in some way impeding proper conservation. So we really hope that this new concerted African elephant action plan will push for these national elephant plans. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, CITES, please.
Thank you, Chair. The CITES Standing Committee, at its meeting in November 2023, welcomed the revised African Elephant Action Plan approved by the African Elephant Range States. The parties to CITES also adopted a resolution on the African Elephant Action Plan and the African Elephant Fund. The parties recognized the urgent need to raise funds to enable the effective implementation of the African Elephant Action Plan. The resolution furthermore invites all parties, donors, intergovernmental organizations, non-governmental organizations, and other stakeholders to support the implementation of the action plan and to provide financial contributions to the fund. As mentioned by parties, new and innovative financial mechanisms should be explored. In this regard, the CITES Secretariat commissioned a paper on mobilizing sustainable finance for African elephant conservation that includes inputs provided by the African elephant range states during a roundtable meeting. The CITES Secretariat would like to thank the European Union for the support in the preparation of the study and for support during the roundtable, and would like to inform the meeting that the study is available on the CITES website. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for all these interventions. If I could take us back to the paper, there is the CRP version, so CRP 29.4.1. We have a few small amendments then to the text, which is on paragraph 2A of the draft resolution, and line 4 of that section would then read, and innovative funding instruments, so we delete funding models, such as payments for, funding models to support implementation of the African Elephant Action Plan. I think with these small amendments, we should be able to recommend this for adoption. So can I take it, can I ask if there are any comments before we adopt or recommend for adoption? So we're recommending for adoption the endorsement of the African Elephant Action Plan, CRP 29.4.1. And endorsing the action plan itself. Thank you. Done. Thank you. Can we then move on to item 29.4.2, which is the West African MOU, and will be introduced by the Secretariat. Secretariat, please.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, under the current agenda item, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 29.4.2 on the West African Elephant MOU. This document was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Terrestrial Working Group, which supports the recommendations contained in this document without further amendments. The document has been also recommended for adoption by the Scientific Council as per the addendum to the document. In summary, the document reports on the implementation of decisions 13.99 to 13.100, which instructed the Secretariat to facilitate communication among the signatories to the West African Elephant MOU on the future of that MOU. The Secretariat with funding from the government of Germany, organized the third meeting of signatories online in October 2021, at which the signatories discussed the pros and cons of terminating or continuing with the MOU. The signatories decided to continue with the MOU, but to amend it to better align it with existing governance structures for African elephants. This meant that they agreed to use the existing African Elephant Action Plan as their strategic planning tool and focus their attention on the implementation of the plan rather than engage in further policy discussions. The signatories also decided to recognize the two African elephant species, Loxodonta africana and Loxodonta cyclotis, separately in the MOU. With the agreement reached by the signatories, resulting in the amendment of the MOU, the COP decisions 13.99 and 13.100 have been fully implemented. Therefore, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to delete decisions 13.99 and 13.100. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. If I could open the floor for any comments. Yes, Turkmenistan, please.
Not now, another, sorry. Sorry, we requested the floor on the document 29.4 regarding this CAMI. But for the technical issues, there was not light, and that's why we would like to have intervention on this document point.
Thank you. There will be a CRP on that item, but we will take your comment now if that's acceptable to you. So please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Уважаемые делегаты,
Dear delegates, the Turkmenistan is having this floor to speak for the first time. We would like to thank Uzbekistan for carrying out this conference in this beautiful city of Samarkand. Turkmenistan officially has become a signatory of the Convention on the Protection of Migrating Animals in January 2021, and we are early already supporting conservation of migrating animals on the Central Asian Initiative on Mammals, signing a MOU on Saygak and Bukhara deer. Turkmenistan also takes part very actively on conservation on other types of species, jayran, leopard, and ural. In 2022, it supported development of the regional strategy on protection of the leopard, Asian leopard, and we will continue supporting this document. Turkmenistan also welcomes the IUCN initiative and the project on increasing resilience on zoonotic diseases in the nature reserve areas of Central Asia, which will facilitate activities on protection of the protected areas and introduce the One Health system to protect and conserve the species which are included in the list. We are very happy to include in the coming the Manula, and they do not have their constant place of living, including Kulan, Bizarre, Ibex. And also, we would like to welcome the revision of the new program or action plan of coming for 2027 and 2033, with those actions that will be very useful for certain types of coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Turkmenistan. We look forward in due course to the CRP and hopefully to our recommendations around that. Let me return then to document 29.4.2 on the African elephant, West African elephant. So can I open the floor for comments on the West African elephant paper, please? If there are no requests for the floor, then I think we could move to recommend this for adoption, noting that the document reports on the implementation of the decisions 1399 and 13100 and recommends their deletion. We haven't had any changes to the text, so can I ask that we do recommend this for adoption? We can indeed adopt it. Can we move on then to item 29.5, which is the African wild ass, and will be introduced by the Secretariat, please.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, under this agenda item, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 29.5/Rev.2 on the conservation of the African wild ass. This document was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Terrestrial Working Group, which recommended the adoption of the draft decisions without amendments. This document contains one annex setting out decisions to range states and the Secretariat. As per the addendum to the document, the Scientific Council recommends the adoption of the proposed decisions. In summary, the document reports on the implementation of Resolution 12.8 on the conservation of the African wild ass. With funding received from the government of Germany, the Secretariat commissioned a habitat suitability study and genetic sampling in Eritrea and Ethiopia, where long-standing and constant population connectedness could be confirmed. Implementation of Decision 13.98 advanced, with the Secretariat facilitating a sampling mission in Somaliland, where no African wild ass could, however, be observed in the surveyed range. Implementation of the roadmap for the conservation of African wild ass and the decision will continue. In line with the recommendations arising from the Sahelo-Saharan Range State meeting of March 2023 and the Scientific Council, it is proposed to include this roadmap into the concerted action for Sahelo-Saharan megafauna, or the initiative that will be established. Therefore, in terms of the actions, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft decisions directed to Djibouti, Egypt, Somalia, and Sudan, as well as the Secretariat, and delete Decision 13.98. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I can open the floor for comments. If no one would like to take the floor, then I think we can move to recommend this for adoption, noting that we're deleting older Decision 13.98. With that, can I ask then that we recommend for adoption the document 29.5 Rev 2, noting the deletion of Decision 13.98? I think indeed we can. So adopted, or recommended for adoption. That's good. Can we move on then to item 29.6, which is on the jaguar, and item 29.61, which is the conservation measures, and again, Secretariat to introduce, please.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, under this agenda item, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 29.6.1, Jaguar Conservation Measures. This document was prepared by the Secretariat. The discussion on the document has taken place in the Terrestrial Working Group yesterday evening and will still continue this evening. This document contains one annex with draft decisions. There is also a related information document, Inf.29.6, which contains the report of interviews with focal points of CMS parties in the jaguar range and priorities for cooperation on jaguar conservation. The document also has an addendum which provides general comments of the Scientific Council and its recommendation to COP to adopt the decisions. In summary, the document reports on the activities carried out by the Secretariat following receipt of a request from the Minister of Costa Rica on behalf of Argentina, Bolivia, Costa Rica, Paraguay, Peru, and Uruguay to support their implementation of CMS obligations following the listing of jaguar in Appendices 1 and 2 by COP14. Over the course of this intersessional period, the Secretariat conducted a series of online meetings with the requesting governments to clarify their obligations with regard to the Appendix 1 and 2 listings. This included an overview of the instruments available for range states to cooperate on the conservation of jaguar as required by the Appendix 2 listing and interviews with all range states that are party to CMS on their priorities regarding jaguar conservation. Based on the options for cooperation presented by the Secretariat, the range states agreed that an initiative similar to the joint CITES CMS African Carnivores Initiative would best suit the conservation needs of the jaguar. In the meantime, the joint work program of the CMS and CITES Secretariats was approved by the respective standing committees. This joint work program also included cooperation on the jaguar. Based on a decision of CITES COP14 in 2022, the Secretariat participated in a jaguar range state meeting hosted by the government of Brazil in 2023. The outcomes of that meeting were reported to the 77th meeting of the CITES Standing Committee, which agreed, amongst others, to request the CITES Secretariat to prepare terms of reference for the creation of an intergovernmental platform as specified in paragraph 21 of document SC77 Doc 43, including the option of a joint CITES CMS jaguar initiative. Also, it recommended that both the secretariats jointly develop, in close consultation with jaguar range states and inviting contributions from the Convention on Biological Diversity and other relevant organizations, a joint working program. Against this backdrop, which did not exist at the time of submission of this document, and in light of the proposals submitted by the governments of Costa Rica, Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, and Paraguay for the establishment of a jaguar initiative, the Secretariat proposes to merge the decisions contained in this document with those contained in the submission of the parties. Based on the discussions in the Terrestrial Working Group last night, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to merge the proposed decisions in this document with those contained in document 29.6.2. However, the discussion on this will continue this evening in the Terrestrial Working Group. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. We will refer this, obviously the discussion is ongoing in the working group, so we will get a CRP in due course, but I'll open the floor at this point for any comments. No comments, please? Brazil, please.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Thank you. Good morning. And understanding that the documents are still being finalized on the working group, I will be brief just to thank the Secretariat for taking part actively in the workshop of range states on the Jaguar, which we had the honor to host, in the beautiful city of Cuiabá last year. There were very fruitful discussions there, and we are quite sure that they will help us also here in CMS to put forward this important agenda of conservation of these species that's a symbol of the conservation of biodiversity in our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Brazil is one of the species I look forward to actually seeing. It looks an amazing animal, so at some point in the future would hope to see them. CITES, please.
Thank you, Chair. As reflected in the document prepared by the CMS Secretariat, the parties to CITES adopted a number of decisions on Jaguar, including decisions directed to the CITES Secretariat to cooperate with the Secretariat of CMS and the Coordination Committee for the 2030 Jaguar Conservation Roadmap for the Americas, led by UNDP, to undertake a number of activities, including a range states meeting. The range states meeting took place in September 2023, and the Secretariat would like to express its gratitude to Brazil for hosting the meeting and thank Switzerland and the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland for their financial support to organize this meeting. The CITES Secretariat reported the outcomes of the meeting to the 77th meeting of the CITES Standing Committee in November last year. The committee noted the main results and conclusions of the meeting of the Jaguar range states and requested the Secretariat to, among others, in line with the CMS CITES joint work program, jointly develop, in close consultation with Jaguar range states and inviting contributions from the CBD and other relevant organizations, a joint working program establishing specific priorities for Jaguar conservation throughout the region, activities to promote coexistence, and necessary actions for preventing and combating illegal killing and illegal trade of jaguars. The joint working program should be submitted for consideration by the 33rd meeting of the Animals Committee, scheduled to take place in July 2024, and the 78th meeting of the Standing Committee, scheduled to take place in February 2025. The CITES Standing Committee furthermore recommended that both secretariats, subject to the availability of external funding, jointly organize a second meeting of Jaguar range states to discuss the implementation of the joint working program for Jaguar conservation with the support of relevant partner organizations. Noting that discussions are ongoing in the terrestrial working group, the CITES Secretariat remains available to provide information relating to the CITES processes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, CITES, and thank you for your offer of support in the future as well. Belgium, please. Belgium, please. Thank you very much. I believe this is still subject to discussion in the working group, and there will be a CRP to follow. Again, I believe the CRP will combine papers 29.61 and 29.62, so pending that, we'll come back to that discussion. Can I move us on then from item 29.61 here, just to clarify with the Secretariat if there is any other introductory remarks they want to make under 29.62. I believe Costa Rica may introduce document 29.62. Again, there will be a CRP on this. Costa Rica, please. Yeah, thank you, Costa Rica. I think there's microphone problems, so you may speak from the Cook Islands. Apologies, I'm just thinking about jaguars on the Cook Islands. Costa Rica, please.
Sí, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair. Distinguished delegates, I am pleased to present document UNEP CMS COP14 Doc 29.6.2 Rev 1, and in Annex 1 we put forward a draft resolution for the setting up of the Jaguar initiative. The document was proposed by Argentina, Brazil, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, Paraguay and Costa Rica. The Jaguar Panthera onca was listed in appendices 1 and 2 of the CMS in 2020, and since then the range states and member and parties to CMS have worked with the Secretariat and together to set up an intergovernmental mechanism which will help us to comply and meet our obligations with the Convention. This document is the outcome of all that work. The proposal indicates that a CMS Jaguar initiative which would act as a platform which will catalyze the cooperation between governments, stakeholders. It will help us to raise funds and work on national and regional plans and programs for the conservation of jaguar. We will work on maximizing the existing synergies between CMS, CITES, and the Jaguar 2030 roadmap. So we call on parties to prepare a work program to be validated at a meeting of the states. And we also call on the parties and NGOs to support the work program and provide funds to assist and to continue the work. The decision also calls on the Scientific Council to report on the progress of the decisions and to the Secretariat, subject to the availability of funds, to support a draft program of work and to convene a meeting of the states. So we call on all parties to adopt this draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Costa Rica. Again, I'll open the floor. There will be, I think, as I've said, a combined CRP on this matter. If there are no comments at this point, then we will return to the issue when the CRP is available. Thank you very much. Can we then move on to item 29.7 on pastoralism, please, and the Secretariat will introduce. Secretariat.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegates, under agenda item 29.7, the Secretariat wishes to introduce document 29.7, pastoralism and migratory species. The document was prepared by the Secretariat, and discussions on the document took place in the Terrestrial Working Group, and a CRP has been made available. The document contains one annex with a set of draft decisions, and it also has an addendum where the Scientific Council's comments and recommendations to COP are provided. In summary, this document was initiated by the Secretariat as it identified pastoralism as a recurring threat mentioned across its avian and terrestrial programs of work. The document proposes decisions directed at parties, the Scientific Council, and the Secretariat, aimed at identifying potential impacts pastoralism may have on CMS-listed species, as well as identifying or developing best practice rangeland management and policies. Considering the nuances and complexities around wildlife conservation and pastoralism, additional analysis with the participation of experts and relevant stakeholders involved in pastoralism, rangeland ecologies, and migratory species conservation is needed to identify priority areas of work under the auspices of CMS. Therefore, a multi-stakeholder approach is recommended to identify challenges and opportunities to better address the impact of pastoralism on migratory species and to contribute to ongoing work of partners on this topic. The Terrestrial Working Group made some additions to the text of the draft decision that are reflected in the CRP and recommend them for adoption by the COP. Therefore, the Conference of the Parties is recommended to adopt the draft decisions contained in CRP 29.7. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. I think the CRP is one of the more recently produced ones, so we will take that in due course. But I'll open the floor now for comments. If there are no requests for the floor, then we will come back to that when the CRP is available. Sorry, it is available, as the Secretariat have reminded me, but we'll give you time to digest the contents and consider the wording in that. With that, we're approaching lunchtime. Could I ask Secretariat if there are any announcements? Secretariat?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to remind meetings of the working groups are going to take place during the lunch break. Budget will meet at 12:30. The group looking into the strategic plan will meet at 1:30 in the Saiga room. It should be a short meeting to finalize the CRP. Institutional and cross-cutting is meeting at 12:30, and the order of their work will be plastic pollution, restructuring of the Scientific Council, and climate change. And aquatic will meet at 1:45 after the side event on BB&J. You can sign up for discussions in the welcome desk. And Avian is also going to meet to have a short meeting to finalize their CRPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. Let me clarify some timing issues with Secretariat. Thank you. That concludes our business on the agenda for this morning. We do have a signing ceremony, and I'm delighted to announce that the government of Argentina will sign the Memorandum of Understanding on the conservation of high Andean flamingos and their habitats. Andean flamingos, as many of you will know, undertake continuous migration among the wetlands of Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, and Peru. With this signature, these four countries make up the distribution area of the species included in the memorandum. Could I invite Mr. Eduardo Daniel Randorini, CMS National Focal Point and Undersecretary at the Environment Ministry in Argentina, and a representative of the Secretariat, Ivan, to come to the podium for the signing ceremony. Yes, representative of Argentina, welcome, and please take the microphone.
Buenos días.
Good day. First of all, we would like to thank the government of Uzbekistan for welcoming us to this beautiful and magical city of Samarkand, and for having prepared this COP with the CMS. On behalf of the Ministry of the Environment in Argentina, we, as the administrative national focal point of CMS in Argentina, we see the signing of this Memorandum of Understanding of the conservation of high Andean flamingos and their habitats. This is something that has been pending, and for various reasons it had to be deferred in the past. We are convinced that this Memorandum of Understanding will allow us to strengthen the conservation of high Andean flamingos in the region through the coordination of actions between the signatory parties. We'd like to thank the Secretariat for the work carried out to ensure and make possible the signing of this Memorandum of Understanding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Argentina. Please, sir. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias. Esto nos lo quedamos nosotros. Muchas gracias.
Gracias. Thank you very much, Argentina, and congratulations on signing the MOU. We will reconvene at 3 o'clock this afternoon. We will begin with CRPs and recommending for adoption those that are available. They mainly come from yesterday from working group sort of discussions last night and from earlier this morning. So if you could be ready to comment and intervene if necessary on the various CRPs that are already available. Thank you very much and enjoy your lunch.